Now introducing your 2015 Illini Drive All-Stars. The sophomore social media guru from Naperville, Illinois, Mr. Jeff Omer. Second, the senior co-host and one half of the Twin Towers from St. Charles, Illinois, Steve Bourbon. Third, his counterpart, the always sarcastic and a fan of no team on the show, senior co-host Sam Sherman. Then we have the new guy on the squad whose favorite word is crucial when talking about the Illinois basketball team. Repping small-town Washington, Illinois, senior co-host JJ Wilson. Last but not least, the senior producer from Chicago, Illinois, Torrance Sorrell.
Hello and welcome to Illini Drive here on WPGU 107.1. I'm Sam Sherman, joined alongside Jordan Wilson, Steve Bourbon, Jeff Omer, and Torrance Sorrell. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
Look good, feel good.
Yes, we're all suited up today.
Better than I do.
Yeah, well, Steve and I are suited up.
Well, some of us fall short, I guess.
Right now, I'm actually looking at an award we got.
Just a
this
shameless
past weekend.
plug.
Yeah, well, yeah, we know. I'm proud of it. Would have liked first place, but it's okay. We got second. Torrance, what did we win?
Okay.
You want me to pass?
Yeah.
Do you want to read off the
No,
thing?
we good. So pretty much, it was for best, in my opinion, best sports show in the state.
For INBA.
For INBA,
Yeah.
Illinois News Broadcaster Association. In case of you guys didn't get that. I don't really say that we lost because Loyola, they submitted a news
Show.
So
Yeah.
we pretty much, in my opinion, I still feel like.
Oh, yeah. We're the best sports show in Illinois.
Yeah.
I want to tell you
At least at the collegiate
a
level.
little bit. I got to
Yes. But, I'm very proud of it. I think the work we do here I have a fun time with it. People enjoy
student
it.
athlete of this great game that we coach and play.
But
so I got to be a
Let
dad.
everyone know that we are the second best soft radio reporting show.
I think it's pretty safe to say we're the best sports radio show on this station on Mondays.
At the very least.
Why do they call it soft?
There's nothing
There's
soft
nothing
about
soft
it.
about that award. Well, I guess because, but that's confusing. I would have considered maybe hard news being like news.
Yeah.
Like breaking news.
Unless it was some sort of, I don't know. Loyal is kind of crazy. Who knows? So, on today's episode of Illini Drive, we're going to talk about, we're going to open up the show with some NBA playoff talk. There's been some bad series, and actually there's been a lot of bad series, and we'll break all those down. Then we're going to have the Daily Illini's men's tennis reporter Chris Kennedy in studio. He's going to be talking about something exciting that happened with Illinois men's tennis. They won the Big Ten championship, and they beat some good teams to get there, and so we'll be talking some more about that. And then we're going to split up the last segment. We're going to talk a little MLB. Now we're a month into the season. Break down a couple teams, kind of not the state of baseball, but
The state of play.
and then we're going to talk the NFL draft, which is happening in Chicago I think it's this week. I should know, but it's very soon.
It's very soon.
When is the NFL? It's soon. But we're going to talk some NFL drafts, probably some Bears, and who they should take. So, starting out, NBA playoffs. I wanted to start out with the team that we talk most about, the Bulls.
Yeah.
They really, by all they should have finished the deal against the Bucks in Milwaukee on Saturday. They didn't. Because of a really bad play by Derrick Rose.
Well,
run us through it.
Yeah, so Sam, you and I were watching the game at a local establishment.
Yes.
And so, the Bucks called timeout with 0.8. They put 1.3 back on the clock, and Sam, leaves, for a minute. And by the time he came back, the game was over and the Bulls had lost.
Well, I should say, so what happened is there was initially 0.8 on the clock.
Right.
And I went and I said, well, they're not going to score here. And I didn't say this. I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, I can run to the bathroom. When I come back, they'll be in the commercial before overtime. And I get out of the bathroom and I walk out and I looked at a screen and I saw I think they were dropping confetti or something because
they were celebrating.
Yeah, they were celebrating, and I was like, wait. I was like, is this a high? What? And no, it turned out. And then I kind of walked back, and you were just looking at me, and you're like, yeah, that just happened. And really just a bad defensive play by Derrick Rose there.
Yeah, it was kind of away from. They had two guys, setting screens right at the top of the key there, and then Derrick was kind of isolated with Jared Bayless there running the baseline, and Bayless just made one cut back to the basket. It was a nice pass, but I mean, way too easy of a play. Yeah. I mean, just watching that over and over before the show, because I'm a sick puppy and like to watch these kind of things. It just looked like Derek was gassed. I mean, played 40 minutes, which, I mean, to end the regular season, he was on a minutes cap of, I think it was about 20 minutes to start, but they bumped it slowly up to about 25 or 30. But this series, going into Game 4, he was averaging 45 minutes per game, and he played 40 again in Game 4. It's like, just you have Aaron Brooks, you have, not going to say Kirk Heinrich, but like you have options there. Like you don't need to play Derek so much and end up burning them at the end of Game 4.
And I feel like we're talking about that with Tibbs every week.
He's
just burning guys out. But the one thing that I mean, don't get me wrong, I was probably just as upset as you guys were when I saw that happen. But one of the things I said before Game 4 is, I wasn't really like, I hope they go out there and sweep the Bucks, because I was thinking an extra game, because I'm still pretty confident they're going to beat the Bucks.
Yeah.
But I think an extra game for Derrick Rose will go better for them against the Cavs next series. And, I think this is a great example, because it came down to Derrick Rose, and I don't think it's likely that he's going to make a mistake like that. I mean, sure, he was gassed, but I think this will be something useful that he can take into the Cleveland series and not do again. Because if they had just swept them, what if he had made this same mistake in the Cleveland one? You don't have the ground to make up against Cleveland. And I think, I'm not happy that it happened, but given the situation and what it could have been, I think it's best case scenario if this mistake were going to happen anyways.
Yeah, you made a couple really good points there. I mean, we've been watching. There's just lulls about 3-4 minutes at a time where the Bulls offense really does nothing of consequence. They kind of stand around and jack up long jumpers, and then we've seen multiple times this series where the Bucks go on 11-0 or 15-4 runs.
How many times have we seen Jimmy Butler just hit like ridiculous shots to sort of like either to end a cold streak?
It was Derrick Rose early in the series that hit a couple clutch threes. So they're still trying to find themselves, this group, and be consistent. But playing Milwaukee, I expect the Bulls to win, but like they're no slouch. They're second in the league defensively. They're long as hell and athletic. So I mean, you look at Carter Williams, Creek, Giannis. I started trying to say the last name. Giannis. Middleton, Dudley. I mean, they're all long. They're all athletic. They can switch everything.
I like the Bucks. In a few years, I really like the Bucks.
We're getting Jabari back next year.
Jabari will be a big piece.
Imagine if Larry Sanders didn't get into a fight at a strip club. It could be really good.
Well, Larry Sanders is like 26. Right? Yeah.
Decided he didn't want to play basketball.
Whatever. The Bucks have still had success despite that. But I mean, it has been. I completely anticipate the Bulls, as you said, Jordan, to sort of take care of business and finish that series tonight. But looking ahead, obviously, Cleveland had no problems with Boston until they swept them in that series, and you'd think, well, clean cut, there you go. Not so fast. In Game 4, Cleveland kind of hurt themselves with
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, exactly. Kelly Olynyk sort of grabbed the arm of Kevin Love.
It's kind of like a WWE move.
Yeah. And it didn't see it, it wasn't anything like that you don't see. You see it, stuff like that occasionally, but it doesn't always end up with a dislocated shoulder. And that's what happened with Kevin Love. He dislocated his shoulder. It was announced today or earlier in the day that he's going to be out for the entire second round. And then J.R. Smith.
He's going to be out in my opinion, he probably be out the whole entire playoff.
There's definitely a possibility of that.
His last time he's playing with Cleveland, in my opinion.
I mean, seriously though.
And then, of course, J.R. Smith sort of pulled a classic J.R. Smith move and elbowed, was it Jay Crowder?
Jay Crowder
in the face?
Yeah, we've seen this before. Jeff, I think you said they announced 2-game suspension for J.R.?
Yes.
2 games. So he'll sit out first 2 games of the series. We've seen this before. I mean, he was playing actually pretty well for the Cavs. Ever since they got him and Mozgov and Shumpert, they hit another gear that they've been probably one of the best teams in the NBA, top 3.
J.R. Smith will take a lot of shots, but he can also get really, really hot from beyond the arc. And even if that's just for a portion of the game, he can really, pull his team ahead, whichever team he's playing for. Just by hitting a few threes, and he has that ability. So although he's not going to necessarily do it consistently, he could have his game in a series that he kind of just takes over.
Well, and we saw when the Bulls were in Cleveland, kind of the end of the season there. I mean, he took what was it, 18 threes?
Yeah.
He hit, I think it was 7.
But he'll hit some of them.
Right. I mean, he can get on a roll there, and when you're able to space the floor around LeBron, like who do you leave? When you have Love, most qualified spot up shooter, Smith, Kyrie, and then LeBron at the controls. I mean, that's a team that's just really, really hard to stop. And losing Kevin Love hurts on paper. But, I mean, I think Tristan Thompson should be able to come in at the 4.
It seems like every time I'm watching Tristan Thompson, I don't watch him on a nightly basis, obviously, but he's good.
He is a monster on the offensive glass.
He just pulls down rebounds. And are you going to get that outside shooting that you get from Kevin Love? Well, obviously not. But I don't think I think that they'll get, in some ways that addition in the rebounding area, offensive rebounds.
Mozgov too. I think he doesn't get enough credit too.
Absolutely.
He moves the
he
moves the floor real.
That's
fast.
a big pickup.
He's a little bit, in my opinion, I like him a little bit more than Varejao. Varejao obviously knows the system more because he's been there with LeBron for the longest, but Mozgov definitely been a great addition to that team, and I felt like a lot of people didn't really mention that as much.
And Mozgov doesn't flop nearly as much as Anderson Varejao.
Yeah.
So how important is it right now for the Bulls to, obviously this sounds like an obvious question, but do you think that they can take advantage of this? At least, I mean, you've got Kevin Love for the whole series, but then J.R. Smith with those first 2. I mean, to me, you gotta win. It's of course it's still difficult, but you gotta win at least 1, ideally 2 of those games, kind of going into the rough patch.
Well, I mean, I think you need to take care of Milwaukee tonight.
Yes.
I think you need to get past that because you don't want to be hanging around with them. Milwaukee, in their own right, has been a physical series. I mean, Mirotic got banged up. Zaza Pachulia's,
get out of the Milwaukee series.
Get out
healthy.
of that. I mean, just get out of Dodge in that regard. But I mean, I think these games where J.R. Smith's gonna be out, I mean, they're gonna be a little bit thin at two guard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be Shumpert, who's been playing fine. Mike Miller, they might dust off. James Jones. I mean, Matthew Dellavedova. I mean,
Heat players.
Yeah. The Heat band got back together.
Yeah.
But I mean, without J.R. Smith, it kind of neuters their offense a little bit in terms of spacing, and then without Love as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can kind of cramp down on LeBron. Let Jimmy kind of take him more so one-on-one, but. I don't know, man.
You don't want to one-on-one him, though.
No one can neutralize LeBron one-on-one, but Jimmy's probably as good as it's going to get outside of Kawhi Leonard. But
I think I know we've talked a couple times about Kevin Love and how good is he as far as was he what he turned out to be or what everyone thought he would be. But you look at his statistics in those first 3. Or stats in those first 3 games of the series. And I mean, he was improving in every area, 9-ish rebounds. Yeah. I mean, he was 16, 17 points, even dishing out 3 assists. I mean, he was definitely playing up to what I think everyone expected of him in the playoffs. So I think that really is going to do some damage. And as long as the Bulls, like we said, get out of the series healthy, they really do need to take advantage of these absences.
And I think it's sort of the Chris Bosh effect at the same time. Love is the third banana there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he averaged 16 and 9 this year, which, as pretty good. Yeah. In a vacuum, that's pretty good. Now, he was putting up 23 and 12 in Minnesota.
Because, when you're not the only guy there, then...
Right.
Yeah.
But, you take into account, he's said some things off the court that were questionable, like he didn't think LeBron was the best player in the league, all that other stuff. But I think people tend to undervalue him just because he doesn't get the opportunities. So, but now, I mean, their front court is thin. I mean, behind Mozgov, they really don't have much of a center. Mm-hmm. And outside of Thompson, you could go small with Sean Marion at the 4. You could put LeBron at the 4.
Marion, one of your favorite players.
Well, that jump shot is just gorgeous. I mean, he's like chest pass, from the 3-point line.
Is he retiring this year?
I think he did say that, yeah. Why is there not more hype around the Sean Marion farewell tour?
But I guess I wanted to swing around with a couple of other series. There's not much to say about the Washington Raptors. The Washington.
I'm so sorry, Drake.
Yeah, exactly. Drake cannot be too happy. But I mean, I bet he's going to be wearing a Washington Wizards jersey.
Yeah, we'll see that.
But seriously, I mean, that I guess the only thing that surprised me a little bit was I thought Toronto was going to put up a little bit of a fight in that series.
It was those two teams were just kind of ended the regular season in equal amounts of turmoil. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Washington, I mean, you would talk to Washington fans, they're ready to fire their coach right now.
Exactly. Yeah, seriously.
If it's not for Paul Pierce, this team was kind of crumbling. But, the truth in the playoffs. Don't bet against them.
And then in probably one of the more boring playoff series you'll ever see, the Atlanta Hawks and the Brooklyn Nets.
Built for NBA TV.
But somehow it's actually one of the only series that's sort of watchable still.
It's been close.
Yeah.
I tweeted the other day I haven't watched a second of the series, and I'm totally okay with that.
Well, yeah, it's like, but I mean, on paper, or at least with Atlanta leading 2-1, it's not like 3-0 or 4-0 as a lot of these other series have been.
Yeah, and in Game 2, Darren Williams had a wide open mid-range jumper to tie the game and missed it horribly. But
He's
I
old.
don't know.
He's not the same.
He's
ever,
old.
ever since
He
he
can't jump.
kicked Jerry Sloan out of Utah, I don't know. Something changed.
Bad karma.
Yeah, coach killer.
I think the Bulls kicked him out. Then wasn't that the game they lost to the Bulls? And then Jerry Sloan left after that.
Just walked out the door.
Might have
The Bulls
been.
beat him that night.
Okay.
So do you?
Well, we can take credit for that. We'll take credit for that. Cool.
As much as I want to get on that Darren Williams bandwagon with Brooklyn, I think Atlanta's going to take that series.
You're telling me you're not high on Bogdan Bogdanovic?
No, not so much.
Oh.
But then really quick, I think so. You'd see Washington, and then in my opinion, you'd see Atlanta move on there. That could be interesting. That could be an interesting series. Not a particularly exciting one, but
I mean, the thing with Atlanta is, I feel like they lost Cephalosha to whatever happened in New York, to the broken leg thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Pacers were involved somehow, but like they haven't been playing necessarily well. They kind of coasted to the finish line.
Sure.
Rested some guys, and I feel like they haven't turned it on yet again. And that's kind of the downside of resting your guys. You get out of rhythm here. They had the long winning streak in the middle of the season. They haven't really been able to replicate that. So, I mean, we'll see. Paul Millsap has dealing with the shoulder. I mean, he needs to get back to 100%. But
going to the West, we have a little bit of time left. Going to the West, Golden State dashed Anthony Davis.
can we get standing ovation for Ant Davis?
Ant Davis
averaged 30 and 10, and they still got swept.
We talk about this all the time. LeBron James is the best player on the planet, but I think Anthony Davis is the best
man in the league.
and is going to be, if he's not already, you're going to see him emerge as basically the best
2 or 3
talent.
years, definitely.
And in the playoffs, I mean, the numbers he was putting up in the playoffs were insane. And pretty standard to him. But there's not a lot you can do, especially with
when Curry reaches supernova like he did. I mean, it's just.
Did you see that 3 he did in the corner?
Oh, yeah.
And he got fouled.
He got fouled and they didn't call it.
That was crazy.
Yeah, he's on another planet
you
right
keep
now.
seeing the TV put the camera on Seth Curry in the crowd, kind of
So salty.
yeah, just like
So
that should have
salty.
been me.
Yeah.
Memphis is up 3-0 in Portland was a little bit surprising to me.
Portland, Wes Matthews injury.
Wes Matthews.
Yeah, they haven't been the same since. Aflalo was hurt, so they're starting. I can't. Oh man, now the name escapes me. I'm gonna think of this in like 5 minutes.
Okay,
and shout it out. But yeah, I mean Portland, they're just not the same.
Myers Leonard getting some reps too.
Yeah.
Myers Leonard 50, 40, 90, but didn't shoot enough to qualify. So
A couple more. Clippers and Spurs.
best series of the first round.
Yes,
I like that one. quite a bit.
that's been very good. And
We've already had the Kawhi Leonard takeover game,
Yes.
which is incredible. He's incredible.
Our friend of the show, Shea Serrano, who we interviewed last week, is none too happy with this whole situation. He thought the Spurs were going to take care of business in that one.
Well, I mean, he said they were going to go 16-0. So,
Well, yeah.
I mean, he set the bar pretty high.
And yeah, so I mean that's like the best early series we've seen. And then Houston is up 3-1 on Dallas. Any thoughts on that one?
I think Houston gets away with that. I mean, I think the Mavs with Parsons being out and Rondo playing Connect 4 or whatever he does, then
He just has been. He don't even want to be there.
yeah. So
Or does Rondo want to be?
I don't know. So yeah, I think Houston moves on there. But Dwight Howard looked good so far.
The one thing that just astounded me watching that Clippers series, though, was just some of those shots that Blake Griffin put up that I was just like, my God, what are you doing, man? Like, I just don't, understand. Like, sometimes he just throws them up, and I'm like, I'm cringing on my couch in my living room.
At times he takes way too many 20-footers. It's like, you can jump over everyone in this gym. Like, go do that. Yeah.
Go and do that. We are going to return, and when we return, we're going to have the Daily Liners Chris Kennedy talk a little about the Illinois men's tennis team and the exciting thing that they just accomplished. And we will be back on Illini Drive.
This is Jimmy Jackson. Join in for the Illini Drive, WPGU 107.1.
Welcome back to Illini Drive. We're here with beat writer Chris Kennedy from the Daily Illini, here to talk a little bit of exciting news about Illinois men's tennis. Chris, how you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you, JJ?
Pretty good. So tell me a little bit about what this feat that the Illinois men's tennis team accomplished this weekend.
Well, they are Big Ten champs. They're just an all-around great team, number 4 in the country, and they are on a roll, man. They lost a couple weekends ago to Minnesota, the first Big Ten loss of the season, but I think that really sparked them, and then they rolled through the Big Ten tournament, 3 sweeps to win the title.
Well, I think the most impressive thing to me is someone I was a former Daily Illini men's tennis beat writer, and I think that what I was most excited about being detached and no longer covering the team was the fact that they swept Ohio State, which is something that I just haven't seen in the past year. So what is it to that this year?
It's extremely satisfying for the guys, obviously. I mean, they've beaten Ohio State 3 times in the last 10 years, and then they beat them 3 times this season. So the tide is starting to turn in that rivalry, and I think a big part of that is the freshmen. You're talking about that has impressed you. The freshmen have impressed me. They got 3 guys who contribute on a regular basis, and Aaron Hiltzik and Alex Vukic, as well as Toshiki Matsuya, more or less now. But Aaron Hiltzik has ice water in his veins, clinched the match yesterday, and Vukic has just been on fire. He has set a single-season record, I believe, for most victories in a season with 42, and he and Ferris Gassio are the only 2 Illini to win all 3 of their singles matches this weekend.
Well, and I think you might have to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it was Ferris, Aaron, Jared, and Tim that all got first-team Big Ten. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then Alex was second.
And then Alex was second.
Vukic,
But I mean, I think that's just, especially because both Hiltzik brothers are coming back next year. You got both of them that are first Big Ten. I mean, how does that play into the future? Because, Ross and Tim as a doubles pair and them as that dynamic, that's not going to be a thing next year.
Well, it hasn't been a thing for pretty much the whole second half of the season. I don't know if your listeners are really keeping track of Illini tennis, but Guillaume and Kapinski are sort of the it doubles pair, or they were coming into the season, but they had some struggles, I guess, all the way through March. So head coach Brad Dancer, he made the decision to split them up when the team went on a big trip through Texas in the middle of March and sort of distribute their doubles experience across different courts. So now it's been Tim Kapinski and Jared, as well as Ross and Aaron Hiltzik, and then Ferris Gassio and Alex Vukic. So that has worked great. They've only lost one doubles match in the Big Ten since switching it up, and so I guess shaking it up from the normal usual lineups has really paid dividends for them.
So, and you were there yesterday, and I think one of the things that I saw that was just really cool in general was they got to play outside. Those courts are sitting there, you walk there all the time to Atkins, and they never get to play on them because it's so cold in Illinois for so long. The year that I covered the team 2 years ago, when Jared Hiltzik was a freshman, they didn't play outside once while I was on campus because when they hosted the stuff later, I mean, I was already off campus. But so just describe to me what that atmosphere was like. Not only sweeping 3 teams on the way to a Big Ten championship, being outside, being all hyped up, having several Big Ten all first team players. I mean,
well, it's even more special when it's at home, and I think that's the biggest thing. The team really prides itself on the fan base they have here. Every interview you do with them after, they're like, you got to owe it to the fans, owe it to the net nuts. And they're loud inside Atkins. There was a semifinal match inside Atkins because of bad weather, and they were really loud then. But I think they were even louder against Ohio State. I mean, you were talking about it's nice to conquer Ohio State. I think these fans know it's great to conquer their rival Buckeyes as well.
I think that's one of the things I always like because, you obviously got the specific amount of loyalty for Illinois basketball and Illinois football, but some of these other fan bases, they've got some for the swim team, which a lot of people don't even know that we have a women's swim team, by the way. But the men's tennis team, the Net Nuts, as you said, they're crazy. I mean, in a great way. I mean, they have every bit as hype with not as many numbers as the, I don't want to say the Block Eye, but the Orange Crush. I mean, I hate to compare them based on size, but I mean, they bring energy to those tennis matches.
Well, and I think it's definitely a shock, I think, for the teams that come in because they're hooting and hollering between points. I mean, even if one guy you're supposed to be quiet while they're playing, obviously, it's a tennis match, but on other courts, they're screaming and yelling, and it gets in guys' heads. I mean, some of their biggest matches in the indoor season, I remember players, looking at the refs, please tell them to quiet down. They're getting bothered by it, and so it's a real home court advantage when the other team is actually acknowledging the noises of the fans.
Well, and
Monty Williams situation.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I think that this could be a question for any of you guys, not just Chris, but can we call Illinois a tennis school now? I mean, do we get to do that yet?
We tried to call them a baseball.
Well, the only thing we know is that they're not a basketball or football school. That's
They a golf school.
They might be men's golf. They might be men's tennis. Certainly not football or basketball.
I mean, all these schools, with the fact that we can like kind of legitimately, if we wanted to, call them a baseball school, a tennis school, a golf school. I mean, these are all like legitimate claims if people kind of got behind that and wanted that to be the case.
I mean, a spring sports school, maybe. Two Big Ten championships over the weekend, plus a 17th game in a row. One.
School record for baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And a walk-off by Illini softball that I announced shameless plug.
And you gave a little Hawk Harrelson.
I was calling the game by myself for reasons unknown because Sam wouldn't come do it with me. And so when they had the walk-off, I had to say this ball game is over.
Yeah.
And so.
Did you go over or just over?
No, I kept to myself.
Okay. Don't want to get too excited.
Right. So then, Chris, moving on from this, I mean, you beat your biggest conference rival. You shut them out. You beat them 3 times in a season. How do you go forward from this? You mean you've been there talking to these guys? What is their mindset like? I mean, I can imagine they're pretty hyped, but I mean, what are they trying to do moving forward now, other than win?
I think they're energized to move on. I mean, you get the NCAA regional, you get 2 matches at home to advance to the Sweet 16, which will be a tall order. But this team, I think, is going places. I mean, you got the depth, and they're on fire right now. I think they lost to Minnesota a couple weekends ago.
What was up with that?
I don't know. They lost to Minnesota the last time they played there too. So it was the doubles, I think. Because when they lose the doubles, they have lost the match, usually, in the Big Ten. But they lose to Minnesota, and I think that was sort of a spark. I think it ruins a perfect Big Ten season, but I think they sort of needed a kick in the pants there, and that sort of, I guess, refocused them. And I don't know. I think the Big Ten championship is just the beginning for these guys.
Don't we see that so often, though, in sports? So, I mean, you look at teams that are traditionally, near the top of the bowls that get a loss right before postseason play kind of energizes them. And I feel like, going to college basketball, Kentucky never had that. And I feel like if they had lost so late in the season, I think they would have been a lock to win the tournament. But I don't know, for whatever it is, like losses can kind of refocus teams. That seems like that's happened here.
Yeah, like Illinois basketball and Purdue. Bad example. But right. but yes, I know exactly what you mean, and I think that based on what I've seen, I've made it out to a couple matches. I made it out to the Northwestern this weekend, but I did not get to see the Ohio State one. Unfortunately, I was very upset with myself for that. But I do think that from what I've seen, that loss to Minnesota definitely did help energize them. It's just a matter of how far can it carry them. But looking at what they've got, I mean, feel free to weigh in on this as much as you want because you have more expertise in it than I do. But I feel like they have a fair chance as a team and as individuals, both doubles, singles, and then the overall team when they move into the NCAA tournament.
Well, I think the key is doubles. That's sort of the way it's been all season. Whenever you talk to Dancer and say, what do you guys need to work on? Doubles. Especially after Minnesota, he was really upset, really down. All the guys that I talked to were down after that, as you can imagine. But the doubles, I think that's going to determine how far this team goes. I mean, they won the matches they won in the Big Ten. They won the doubles point almost every time. And then Minnesota, that sort of puts them in a funk. They've had success after splitting the teams up, but we'll see how far they can carry them.
And I feel like that was an issue back 2 years ago when I followed the team when Hiltzik first got here and Ross and Tim were first starting to be that dynamic duo. So if Ross and Tim are now split up, what would you say is the dynamic duo of the doubles team, the one that seems to win toward that doubles point?
I don't know. There's a lot of excitement in doubles. I've noticed it's been more exciting since they split the teams up.
And I've always loved doubles. I think doubles is the most exciting part to watch, and it's great. It's right at the beginning, so you just can check out all 3 of those matches and it all. I mean, it's exciting. It's a very cool atmosphere.
I don't know if there's one team that's, I guess, the it duo like Kapinski and Guillaume were, but I'd have to say Gasea and Alex Vukic, they have just been on fire. I mean, against Ohio State, they win 8-2. They roll 8-2. I think against Iowa they won 8-2, and then on senior day against Nebraska they shut out the other team 8-0. You never see that in doubles. So they've just really been on both as individuals and as a doubles team. They've just really been on a roll, and they're not the loudest like rah-rah guys on the court. Like Ross, as you probably know, is more that sort of player. But they go in and take care of business in the doubles.
And from what I know about Dancer, he's going to feel free to just move them around as much as he wants because he trusts his players. He doesn't necessarily trust the combos. So I'm sure he'll tell you, he'll look at matchups, he'll do all that stuff. And so whatever they decide, whether it's a new combo we haven't seen yet or one that they go back to maybe Tim and Ross, I trust what Dancer is going to do based on their success this year. But, thank you, Chris, for coming in and talking a little Illinois men's tennis. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little NFL draft and a little MLB. So we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Matt Spiegel from 670 The Score. You're listening to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1, Mondays at 6.
Hello and welcome back to Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1. Thanks again to Chris Kennedy for coming in and talking some Illinois men's tennis. That's always a good time with Chris, even though that was the first time we had him. But I'm just going to call
he's hit batting 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Did a very good job on his Illini Drive debut here. But now we are going to talk about the NFL draft.
It's football season.
Well, for you, it's always football season.
Of course.
We're going to talk some NFL draft, and the NFL draft, I apologize, didn't know it earlier, but it is on Thursday. Starts on Thursday, and it goes Friday, Saturday, and
that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, NFL draft in Chicago.
Yeah, first time outside of New York.
Yeah.
Ever?
So
Or
Chicago,
a long time?
Yeah, so Chicago gets to house a whole bunch of stupid football fans.
Yeah. Probably the more.
Are you just talking about the Bears fans?
Yeah,
Most of them
they
already.
fans.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna see a lot of jerseys that you're gonna say, huh? And and that's the Bears fans that are wearing like the I don't even know. Give me a name.
Like a Bernard Berry in number 80.
Yeah. So the Bears have the 7th overall pick this year, and there's a lot of different ways. I mean, I've heard it all way. I've heard defensive tackle. I've heard wide receiver most recently. I think that's where it's there's no real info out there about this, but it's just kind of speculation. They could go defensive back. They could go all over the place. And in quarterback in some of those kind of out there guesses. I want to know first. What you guys, Steve, you can start out if you'd like. Where would you like to see the Bears, or what would you like to see the Bears maybe do with this pick? And if they hold on to it, who would you like to see them take?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the mock drafts. A lot of them, Kevin White from West Virginia, wide receiver. He's just a kind of a combine freak kind of guy. He looks great, on paper. Then you also, you kind of look at defensive line. You're not sure if there's a guy there that's worth it at 7. Obviously, there's rumblings. I don't know from whose camp, but that the Bears were interested in Marcus Mariota. So, I think he's gonna be a Charger,
right?
So I mean, I think all signs kind of point to either Kevin White or Amari Cooper, whoever's available, and I don't know. Like I think you're getting a great player there, or you better. I mean, think about all those Detroit Lions drafts where they drafted wide receivers in the first round, or the Oakland Raiders with Darius Hayward-Bay, all those sort of things. Like if you miss on a wide receiver that early, it sets you back. And so, they better be getting a playmaker and do their homework. Because this is a big draft for this front office. Their first go around here. They can't afford to have a quote unquote Shea McClellan, kind of pick. So we'll see. I mean, I wish that, Leonard Williams from USC would be there. And we talked about this on Friday. He's not going to be there.
If he is there, you say instantly
take it. Yeah. Because, you just need guys to fit the defense, which has been a disaster zone for about 3 years now. And, this offense has a lot of talent, and they had a lot of talent last year. But, you're trying to replace Brandon Marshall. Maybe you do that with Kevin White. But at number 7, I just don't know if that's worth it for a team that has so many holes.
Well, and I think that I've heard quite a bit that they are looking at Amari. It seems like Amari Cooper is one of the hot options for them to take.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the idea of Randy Gregory.
Yeah.
And I say that just because paying attention to the Big Ten and Big Ten football this season, I liked what I saw out of Randy Gregory quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, if he's available there and you've got Amari Cooper and you got Randy Gregory, both of them available, because right now, some of the stuff I've looked at has him going a little bit after the Bears.
Yeah.
So, if he's available, you got a decision to make. Do you put it in Eddie Royal and Alshon Jeffrey to be those wide receivers and kind of develop some of the younger ones like Wilson should be back?
Wilson, yeah.
Do you just leave it at that, or do you add Amari Cooper to build that up? Or do you take someone like Gregory that can help build up a defense that, needs to be, it's right now it's like a Lego castle. Anything can come by and just knock it over.
Yeah, I like Gregory too. little known fact, he was a Purdue commit for about a year. So
actual commit, not lean.
Verbal.
Wow.
But I mean, you look at him; he's physically gifted, pass rushing, extraordinaire. But some teams were turned off. He had a positive marijuana test at the combine, so that's kind of turned some teams off. But I mean, you're looking at a guy that when the process started, he was a top 5, top 10 guy. Now you see him just slipping down to 15 or something like that. So if the Bears really like him, and think about pass rushing, you get Pernell McPhee, but Randy Gregory would be really great at the other 3-4 outside linebacker spot. Maybe trade down and get him or something like that. I mean, I think the Bears have a lot of flexibility, and they need a lot of guys. It's not like they're one guy away. And so, whoever they take, that's just a part of the process. And that's
a part of the reason why when all that Mariota talk or just quarterback talk was kind of occurring, if the Bears were a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender, I'm sure that the front office would do whatever they possibly can to get up in those first 2 spots where you could take one of these guys. Even though I really don't see those early teams giving up those because they need exactly what is what is being offered.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not just that. Amari Cooper is really intriguing to me because, again, it's on college, how you do in college, and then on paper is totally different than, or can be totally different, often different than what happens in the NFL.
Yeah.
But if he can kind of produce at that level of what his potential seems to be in the NFL, then you're looking at an absolute stud wide receiver that can really nicely fit into that offense.
I mean, yeah, he's kind of the production guy. Kevin White's the potential guy. But I mean, watching Amari Cooper, I mean, they threw to him every down, it seemed like, and he's still getting open against double teams, triple teams in the SEC.
That's what Marshall did on that offense. I mean, even though it wasn't great at times, Cutler would go to him
over and over again. I mean, I think regardless, they still need to address the outside receiver position. They get Eddie Royal, but he's not going outside the hashes. He's a slot guy. So whether it's Marquise Wilson, you think he's ready, or some free agent X, or a draft pick, in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever round, they still need to address, that other number 2 wide receiver. So I just don't know if you do it at number 7.
Well, I think that's what I like about Amari Cooper, like you said, is double team, triple team. He was still getting them. It wasn't like, he has 80 more yards added to his stats because he had some wide open bomb that anyone could have caught. I mean, sure, he had a few of those, but a lot of the plays that he had, a lot of the big ones were really good physical plays, and that's what the Bears need, especially when you have someone like Jay Cutler trying to sling you the ball, which I've always liked Jay Cutler until most recently, but, you need someone like him to be able to make that physical one, not just rely on the quarterback, but to make plays themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cutler looks like he's going to be a Bear at least for one more year.
1 year, yeah.
That's about all he's guaranteed at this point. But, Sam, I wanted to get your thoughts on another guy we brought up earlier, Marcus Mariota. There's been a lot of talk, I guess, on, is it going to be Tennessee takes him at 2? Are they going to trade out of it, go to San Diego for kind of a Phillip Rivers swap kind of thing? I guess, what do you think about Mariota, and what would you do if you had the opportunity to get him?
Yeah, I loved Mariota in college, as did almost like America, basically. Right. I mean, everybody liked watching him play in college. He's like a absolute dynamic playmaker. He can run, he can throw. At least in that system, it was working. And he puts up again in the Oregon system. It's hard because it almost seems like you could put anyone in that position and they'll produce put up the numbers. But I think that there's so many nice things, not only that he can do on the field, but off the field. He gives you a lot. What was interesting to me is you watch a lot of John Gruden quarterback camp.
I love John Gruden quarterback camp.
And I actually, I mean, I haven't seen as many episodes as you have, but I recommend it for anyone interested in learning more about these quarterbacks. Even though he ends up, even though he likes everyone, it's still a good show because you kind of get to know a little bit more about these guys, and he puts them in actual situations and has them explain. We didn't watch. You watched the Mariota one. I watched the Winston one. You also watched the Winston one. But you had said that you weren't totally impressed with how Mariota was in that, at least compared to Winston.
Yeah.
And that was interesting to me because I would have thought that maybe it would be the opposite. Yeah. But when and not only that, but I also just think that sometimes you get these sort of, I don't want to call him like a system guy, but maybe
that's the label they're going to get. Yeah.
And the more and more I think about it, and I kind of look at Winston against Mariota, I see Mariota being the sort of bust pick Whereas I think Winston, if he can get it all together off the field, can be a franchise guy.
I mean, we've talked before. I mean, if Winston didn't have these off the field issues, we're talking he's the best prospect since Luck.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, that's not a long time, but he's on that level of quarterback. I mean, a guy that lost once in college. Threw a lot of picks, but everything is there you need.
That being said, if the Bears were in a position, like if the Bears ended up making some wacky trade to get Marcus Mariota, because no one's getting. I mean, Lovey's getting Winston. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
who knows? He might draft like a defensive back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Suddenly Tennessee's like, wait a minute. So if the Bears had that opportunity to take Mariota, as much as I think that there's a lot of warning signs, not a lot, but some warning signs that maybe think that he's going to be that bust, or not even a bust, but just not worth taking with that pick.
Yeah.
I actually still am okay taking him. As long as you're not, and again, I don't expect this to happen, but as long as you're not giving up like an insane amount, which you'd have to give up.
Yeah.
But I'm saying just sort of in this situation, but that is more about how I feel about Jay Cutler than I do about Mark Mariota. I just think that the Bears have to start that process of figuring out what's going to happen past this year.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, it's been, we don't have to go into Jay Cutler, but it's been just shown time and time again that he's not the guy that's going to take him forward.
I mean, you always love to say he's 31 now. I mean, he is who he is.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps saying, "Oh, if he could just like learn to stop turning the ball over, then he'd be great." Well, he's not going to.
Yeah,
he is who he is. But at the same time, it's like Jay Cutler. He is a middle of the road quarterback. Like that's what he is.
Yep.
And so you can do a lot worse. Just look at some of these other teams. Look at Cleveland. I mean that whole train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, but like you can do a lot worse, but you can also do better. And so I think where the Bears fans get frustrated is because the expectations were so high. And I know we're getting into Jay Cutler here, but he just hasn't met those expectations. Now you take a guy like Mariota. The ceiling and basement are so far apart.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you look at Chip Kelly's offense. They're still running Chip Kelly's offense in Oregon, by the way, newsflash. Like, he made Mark Sanchez look pretty good last year out in Philly. So, I mean, I just don't know if you run, a pro style or whatever, Fox and Gase want to do, can he translate? I don't know. I mean, it's just a tough call. And you look at the same thing with some of these other guys, like Bryce Petty out of Baylor. I mean, it was the same questions that we bring up. Or, with Mariota, how do you utilize his mobility? Because, I mean, he did run a 4.5. Like, the dude can run. But at the same time, you can't run as much as you in college and, stay healthy.
And we've seen quarterbacks who can run, who don't necessarily, or often don't become those successful college quarterbacks. Because you said, you're not going to be able to run as much.
Yeah. I mean, look, RG3. I mean, he had a great season his rookie year, but it's not sustainable. And Mariota he's not built like, Cam Newton who can run and sustain the punishment. Like he's a slight guy. And like, I don't know, trying to find a package where you utilize his running as well as his throwing, I think is a tough task for anybody.
And like I said earlier, I stood by Jay Cutler for a long time through a lot of hate, and only just this recent season did I finally buckle and go, you know what, right, let's look at something else. But if you're at that point where someone like me is finally giving up, isn't anything, I mean, not anything, but isn't it worth taking the risk? Or because like you said, what you're going to get out of Cutler. It would be a major shock if something dramatic changed in Cutler other than the mundanity that we know. So isn't it almost worth it to take that? I mean, if he's available. I mean, again, they'd have to give up a lot to get Mariota around for their turn in the first place. But, if Mariota is around, isn't it almost worth taking him just so you can kind of move on with that? Because then later you can try to shop Jay Cutler around, which, not a whole lot of people wanted to buy.
Yeah.
But, you can maybe shop him around. Maybe you could get something that can help with some of those other holes. Maybe someone else needs this. Maybe someone else needs that. But, maybe I just like to gamble.
Yeah.
But for me, maybe it's just this, let's move on. We're going to take a step in a new direction. Maybe that direction will end poorly, but at least take the step at this point.
I think I agree with like some of that, but that's sort of like the thinking that I fear, because with these front office, they want this team to be theirs. And like you see this in the NBA all the time. New ownership, they make a splashy trade. Look in Sacramento, they get the new owner, they go get Rudy Gay, they try and get Josh Smith.
Yeah.
Okay, they want to make a splashy move to get people excited about it.
And
right?
so if there's success, you can point to that.
Like, I did this.
If there's, yes, yeah, exactly.
But I just fear making a move to make a move just for the sake of doing it, and making a move to be splashy and try and set your imprint on something, even though the deal might not be right. That's just what I fear. And
in this scenario that we were talking about, if you were to try and get up that draft and take Mariota, what you give up is not as big of a deal if Mariota ends up being great.
Yeah.
But if he isn't, then you, like you said, it sets you back so far.
Even further back. Absolutely.
Well, and I think whatever, and normally I'm never the one to say this, but I think that whatever this group of all-star coaches and everything that has been assembled since the Bears, went out in embarrassing fashion, I think that whatever they decide to do, I'm going to trust them because they've got years. I mean, they're experienced. I mean, I just trust them more than I've trusted Lovey or that I just trust them. I have no reason for that yet because they haven't proved anything to me or any other Bear fans or Bear supporters anywhere else. But I trust that whatever move they're going to make, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it would be unfair to them to not give them the benefit of the doubt. I think even Phil Emery deserved that a couple years ago. I was like, with Shea McClellan at the time, we're like, oh well, I mean, like that's not who we would have taken, but like maybe he's smarter than everyone.
And then it turned out
he's not.
He had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely no idea. Well, from one team that hasn't proven themselves to a team that's in the process of proving themselves is Chicago Cubs.
Oh, Sam, you just got to throw that one on me.
Yeah, Sam, I know your favorite baseball here. So the Cubs are meeting expectations so far. The White Sox are treading water, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I guess we're now a month into the baseball season. What's your hot take?
Well, you've seen me watch Cub games this year, sort of hate watching. I guess that's not so much hate watching as it is just sort of like I am hating them while I'm watching.
Right.
But
yes.
But it's more. I think that to be honest, taking my personal bias out of it, I would say that the Cubs are doing everything, if not more than what was expected. I mean, a lot of the things that are happening for them, I was not expecting to happen until at least next year.
Yeah.
And you see Chris Bryant already being productive. Addison Russell was called up. He started out his first couple games not great. Yesterday, bases clearing double. Mm-hmm. So he's shown a little bit of potential. The rotation has been solid. Lester hasn't been very good, but other guys have kind of been picking up that slack. The bullpen's been very good outside of Josh Schlitter. He has not been very good.
If Josh Schlitter's your biggest problem, you're doing okay.
And they just sent him down. So I think that with the combination of whatever Madden's doing there, I'm close to the camp of managers in baseball, not meaning that much, but if anyone does it, Joe Madden would be a guy who would bring a different culture into a clubhouse. And you're seeing just a lot of everyone's hitting, they're throwing the ball well, and they're playing well. I mean, they're really they're so far looking like a team that can contend. Especially now, you see the Cardinals lose Wainwright, which is a really really bad injury for them. Losing one of the best pitchers in baseball is never a good injury for any team. So that's gonna hurt them, like literally, and so that's gonna give the Cubs that opportunity. I mean, I think already the Cubs just played the Reds, and the Cubs are, I would say, better than the Reds at this point. I think they're ahead of the Brewers, and now you just wonder maybe where are the Pirates and all this, and I'd say that I have to give them credit as much as I don't want to. At least so far, they're exceeding those expectations.
As much as I love that you take the reins, my only comment on the Pirates is that I miss Andrew McCutcheon's hair.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's all I know about the Pirates. I don't know. I had to throw that one in there.
Well, and I think that division's interesting too because God, the Brewers are so bad. And the Brewers are just. It's really hard to watch them. Like as a Cardinal fan, it was really hard to watch that series at all. Mm-hmm. But with the Reds and the Brewers not being very good, and the Pirates kind of being in this limbo, and now same with the Cardinals with Wainwright. I mean. The Cubs are. I mean, and I was hating on them earlier in the season, and not just because of my loyalties. I thought they were at least a year or two away. But, they do look to be up where people actually expected them, which surprises me because usually I don't trust Cubs fans' expectations because it's usually the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs fans are always a little bit inflated, and that's any fans.
Yeah, but I think that with Cubs fans, what they're going to learn now, and I mean, I'm not saying this as like a shot or anything. I'm saying really when your team is good you have to understand the fact that not only you're going to see better baseball, but at the same time you're going to have to go through devastating losses and heartbreaking losses throughout the year, because when your team is like playing relevant baseball, you're going to have to take the other side. And that's the only thing that I question. Are Cubs fans ready? And I'm sure that right now they'll say that, yeah, because it's all been pretty good. But when stuff starts to go bad, as even good teams will see in a season, baseball as a sport, you'll see that always.
Yeah.
Will they be prepared to also stick with the team when not everyone's hitting and the pitchers are not, performing well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long season.
Yeah.
They've had a pretty solid start. What are they, 11 and 8? 10 and 8?
10 and 7, I think.
10
now.
and 7.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, they're right where they would want to be, if not, like we said, more so. Looking to the south side, the White Sox, my team,
they had a nice little weekend.
They did. So they played the Royals.
Played as so much as like a fight.
Yeah, they fought the Royals.
Yeah.
First of all, they won the series before that against the Indians, and then they took on the Royals, who I was pretty well prepared to say that they wouldn't win one of those games. I mean, that's just sort of, I mean, of course there's the fandom in that, but there's also just the fact that the White Sox, whenever they play the Royals, even when the Royals haven't been good, always struggle. But now that the Royals are good, so there was that first game that was sort of crazy with the fight.
Yeah.
And
that was absurd.
It was ridiculous. I mean, we were watching that live, and it looked at first like they were just kind of coming out and it wasn't going to be anything too big. But then, of course, Samardzija was kind of flying out of nowhere, and everyone started that.
Hawk Harrelson got real southern on the call.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was mentioning it to you guys earlier because I'm going to be in Kansas City this summer, and I'm kind of excited about this because it's not normal for baseball teams to be clearing out every couple games.
Yeah,
but I do agree with what you guys said. It looks like there's some growing up that needs to be done. It's not just, as I've been saying, the Detroit Piston bad boys of the MLB 25 years later. It's like you said. It's not their bad boy attitude is not the reason why they're successful.
Yeah, I mean they're
like the Pistons.
Yeah, I think you need to play with a chip on your shoulder.
Sure.
Definitely, especially a team like the Royals. Their stigma is they're not the most talented, but they do the things right to win games.
Yes.
And so playing with an edge certainly helps, but you can't afford to be getting suspended if you're Volquez.
And that's what it comes down to.
Ventura.
Like, when you've got a pitcher who each time he's gone out there's been some sort of turmoil in the game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now it's leading to those suspensions. What I think Lorenzo Cain was suspended, Ventura suspended, and then Volquez suspended.
Yep.
You're not gonna. It's not a good recipe for success if you're gonna go out there and have the risk of suspensions or injury happen. As no injuries for the Royals, but injuries for the White Sox, as Matt Albers broke his pinky finger in that brawl. But yeah, I mean, Matt Albers. There's certainly more devastating injuries that could happen in the White Sox than Matt Albers, but that could have been Chris Sale or Jeff Samardzija, who did get suspended. Both of them. But I think, going off of that fight for a second, because that was sort of a wacky thing to happen. The Royals took that game 1. Game 2 was rained out, and then game 3. Of course, there were 4 games in the series. There was a game that went into the 9th inning, and then was rained.
This was
suspended
Friday.
Yeah.
The game suspended in the top of the 9th, 2-2.
Yes. Sorry. This was the next game. The game got suspended in the top of the 9th, 2-2. And then Saturday's game was a rain out.
Complete washout. Yep.
And then they had to move. They still to finish that 9th inning. So then they take to Sunday. The Sox, Avisail Garcia got a walk-off hit in that one, just so that was quick, neat and efficient.
Can I say, just hopping right into the 9th inning, it was great.
Yeah, you like that.
It's like a 110 first pitch. We get in there, Robertson's in there, strikes out the side.
I'll get to him in a second.
Immediately, and then the White Sox just win. It's like, they won a game in about 12 minutes.
It was efficient, and then they got to win very quickly. And then the next game, they went down 3-0 early after an Alex Gordon home run made it 3-0. But then. It was already 1-0. Whatever, that's not the point. Alex Gordon in that game also made probably the best catch you're going to see all year. Did you guys see this?
Better than Adam Eaton earlier?
He went into this. You always see whether it's like home run saving catches are all great. He went into the stands and made the catch and fell over in foul territory. And it was, if you haven't seen it, check that out. It was a great catch. But the White Sox came back in the 6th inning, scoring 5 runs. And then Robertson came on for the second time in that day. Second game.
Yeah.
He got the win in the first game. Second game, David Robertson, who the White Sox acquired from the Yankees in the past season, or they signed him. They signed him to a 4-year, $46 million deal. I'm sorry.
Oh, so, no, it's just like we've wound up the Jack in the Box.
Yeah,
This is what we're doing here.
This is what you get. David Robertson, you've seen him, Steve.
Oh, he's nasty.
Unreal, and it's just great. I know I'm getting really riled up here. It's fun to have a closer for the team that you root for, because it's just he's really good. I mean, he's a really, really good pitcher.
I mean, anytime the guys are hitting under 100 against him, he's striking out 20 guys per 9 innings.
Yeah,
he's been incredible. The White Sox looking to find themselves a little bit, but like I always say with baseball, you've got about 140 games left, so plenty of time to do some soul searching.
Yes.
Well, I think it's great that Sam's getting this excited so early.
It's April baseball. Sam's in mid-season form.
April baseball. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Illini Drive. The weather outside, I always like to comment on that. Wasn't bad today. A little chilly, but nothing to complain about. So enjoy the rest of your night, and join us next week. Where Jeff, you were here today, which is good, and I think you'll be here.
Jeff, we have to do attendance checks now for Jeff.
Once again, thanks so much for Sam Sherman, myself. Myself is, jeez, I'm just going to run into it. Jordan Wilson, Stephen Bourbon, Torrance Thorell, and of course Jeff Omer, who is here this week. This has been Illini Drive, and have a great rest of the week.